All right, let's break down the Knicks' overtime loss to the Celtics at the Garden on Tuesday night and what that means going forward to the playoffs with our Knicks beat writer for the Post, Steph Bondy. Steph, appreciate you hopping on with us, man. I know you're there at the airport right now. I'm going to start this off with word is Bondy because it was a lot closer game than the other games when they played the Celtics throughout the season. They actually went toe-to-toe with the defending champs and the 2 seed. But what did last night's loss both tell us and you about the Knicks and the Eastern Conference?
Well, I mean, it probably gave the Knicks a little bit of confidence just because the previous three matchups against the Boston Celtics were annihilations. They didn't compete. But in this game, they certainly had a shot. Now, they were at full strength. Jaylen Brown was pretty much injured. He's just trying to get to a 65-game threshold. So he only played 22 minutes. He sat the fourth quarter in overtime. But the Knicks could still feel good about being, down to the wire and really having a chance to win. I mean, no, that's the encouraging part. The discouraging part is there were some mental lapses at the end of this close game, and they really should have won. You should foul Jason Tatum on that shot where he hit the 3-pointer to tie it at the end of regulation. The Knicks were up by 3 points. They know they should have fouled. I'm sure they had that discussion after the game. OG Anunoby should have fouled Jason Tatum. And then, down the stretch, they had some poor possessions, poor last second inbounds plays where the ball went to Josh Hart at the end of regulation and he missed the shot. That ball should be going to Jalen Brunson. They should have found a way to get to him. And then at the end, it ended up in the hands of Mikal Bridges, who fumbled the ball and it went out of bounds. So good, encouraging most of the game, bad finish.
So the mess ups in the final possessions, was that more on the players or was that more on the coaching staff?
So I didn't cover the game last night, but it's hard to read. It's hard to interpret whether the coaching staff put it in the minds of the players enough that they have to foul. OG Anunoby took responsibility after the game and said, I should have fouled him. Whether, Tom Thibodeau, kind of per usual, was wishy-washy on what he told the players or what was instructed. So it's hard to know who was more responsible in that situation. But I have to say that the coaches probably told the players, but if they didn't hammer it home enough during that situation, then that's also on the coaching staff.
All right, so let's say they lock up the 3 seed. They win in the first round. They got to see the Celtics again in the second. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the utmost highest, where's your level of confidence fall that they can beat Boston in a 7-game series?
I mean, a 3. I don't think they can compete with Boston. I never thought they could. I don't think last night changed that so much. Like I said, Jaylen Brown wasn't really in the mix. The Knicks were at full strength. They were playing at home. I still don't think they could beat the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, in my mind, are not only the favorite to win the East, but also the favorite to win the NBA championship. So that's not so much a knock as it sounds. I get it. The Knicks came into this season with the goal of making it to a conference finals after getting eliminated in the second round the last 2 years. But losing to the Boston Celtics, I don't think anybody should be fired for that. I don't think this roster, they were built to compete with the Boston Celtics, but the Boston Celtics took it to another level this year, and the elevation of the Cavaliers wasn't expected, so the Knicks couldn't get that second seed, and now they're stuck playing the Boston Celtics in the second round. If they get by, probably the Detroit Pistons in the opening round.
All right, Steph, they're now over against the top teams in the East and the NBA. So from a media standpoint, we know how Knicks fans love their team. How are the Knicks looked at and, I guess, viewed around the league? What's the narrative behind this team?
Yeah, they're a good team, a 50-plus win team that is not a championship contender. So it's kind of felt like that for a while now with this team. And, there are a lot of holes that probably need to be addressed. The big problem I see is that not just the Boston Celtics, because you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're in their mid-20s. It doesn't feel like they're going to go anywhere. But they do. I mean, to be fair, Kristaps Porzingis is injury-prone. Drew Holiday is older. Certainly Al Horford is older. So you can see a regression maybe from the Boston Celtics next season. The problem is the Cleveland Cavaliers have taken this gigantic step And they are young. They're contractually locked up. I don't think they're going anywhere. So that's another team that the Knicks are going to have to deal with kind of on their path towards becoming a title contender. We heard from actually James Dolan when he went on the podcast with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart that the plan with this team is to have it span multiple years they have the roster, they put it together. The only person that's not contractually locked in beyond next season is Mikal Bridges. So the potential is there to build the continuity, to build the chemistry with this roster. I think the big question, though, is this roster good enough on its own?
All right, so we see you at the airport
Yeah,
now.
right.
They're gassing
Yeah.
up the G5. You're headed out to Detroit because they play the Pistons on Thursday night, and then they got the Cavs at home on Friday night. What would you say would be a great way for the Knicks to close out the week? What are you looking for in these next two games?
Yeah, I mean, this especially the Pistons game, because we don't know what Cleveland is going to be doing in terms of resting players. They're going to have their seed locked up, and their situation locked up. They're not going to be as motivated. The Detroit Pistons are very motivated. They're still in the mix for a higher seed. It depends on what the Milwaukee Bucks do, but I imagine they're going to be a team that's going to want to send a message to the team that's probably going to be their first round opponents. So, I expect a physical game. I'd like to see the Knicks guard the 3-point line. They've had problems with Malik Beasley in that area, and the Detroit Pistons can light it up. So I think that's a big thing for them.